What's going on, chess friends? It's Rafi Chowdhury here today, and we are playing a game here on Lee Chess today. And yeah, so thought I would make a video and do a live sessions game with you guys just to talk a little bit more about my thought process, and also I want to discuss something a little bit specific today, and that is a common question that a lot of chess players have asked me recently, which is especially beginner chess players, they like to ask, or sometimes even non-chess players, they like to ask the question, are chess players smart? Um, it's a pretty obvious question, and I think it's a very relevant question. So a lot of people that typically play chess are, also interested in um, uh, knowing like if that's actually cognitively, help. Does it have any sort of cognitive benefits at all? And if so, then what those benefits are. And so I think I wanted to address that today in this video also as we play. So yeah, so let's focus a little bit more on the position first. So we've got a variation of the classical Caro-Kann here, and I'm gonna go ahead and just develop my pieces naturally here to natural good squares. F6, D7, so he's gonna go ahead and castle here. We are probably going to be playing a move like e6, bishop e7, and then maybe castling kingside as well. So the answer to that question is kind of complicated. What we do know from psychology is that chess players don't have anything specific about them that makes them necessarily smarter than the average person who doesn't play chess. But I do know and believe that chess players typically operate based on pattern recognition. So they're constantly looking at different patterns and trying to establish and make connections from those patterns from previous experiences. So with that being said, I would say that you know they're not necessarily smarter, but they exercise their brain a lot more, and because of that, the brain's it's in psychology we refer to it as neuroplasticity. So as you train the brain in different ways, and as you use it, basically it's kind of like a muscle almost. It also physically changes its shape and also adapts to that the changing needs. So as we're engaging in cognitive things like chess, I do think that it definitely helps in um, the brain being able to stay sharp and alert much better, and also being able to just constantly be in the know, being alert and thinking in certain types of ways. It definitely does help with that, I think. So anyway, so it's, yeah, queen to c2 is a pretty typical move here in this position. I'm thinking maybe I can play c5 and then maybe start first. Maybe I want a castle. Yeah, I probably want a castle first. And then I could play a move like c5 and just try to strike at the center here. But yeah, chess players are definitely smart. Obviously, it takes a certain level of intelligence to be able to play chess well. I think that especially grandmasters and people that are masters of chess, I definitely think that they have a higher degree of, to some extent, maybe intelligence, but definitely more so, they have a higher degree of discipline when it comes to um, the way they practice the game, how dedicated they are. They do have all of these qualities. Whether that's quantifiable as intelligence or not is a different question. Psychology defines intelligence, three different ways. There are different types of intelligence. There's general intelligence, there's fluid intelligence, and then there's also crystallized intelligence. So it really depends a lot on what you mean by intelligence, more so than anything else. But I certainly do think that it helps with crystallized intelligence for sure. I mean, if you understand how to think, about certain chess positions in certain ways, I think if similar ideas come up in other board games and other situations, I definitely think that a chess player would have some degree of you know some degree of uh, experience and expertise compared to an average person who's never played a critical thinking game like chess. So yeah, this diagonal has now become open, and I think he's gonna put a piece there for sure. His bishop is gonna go on b2 next move. I'm just trying to think of like how I can challenge this bishop maybe. Maybe I can. I don't know. Hmm. Let's go ahead and put our queen on this square. So if he does play bishop b2, we might be able to play something like queen to f4. So yeah, so bishop b2, queen f4. I think that's a pretty good square for our queen. We're gonna put the rooks on d8 and start to double up on the d file. We might be able to, probably will play a move like h6 at some point, just giving a loft square for our king to go to h7 in the event that there's a back rank checkmating idea. So I'm just thinking after queen f4, can he play anything to kick my queen off from protecting? I don't think he can immediately. I'm also considering a simple move like rook d8 or bishop e7. I'm sorry, bishop e7. But I think this is probably the most aggressive way to play this position. Something like a queen to f4. Because we're always going to be eyeing the square on f2 as well with these kind of things. And those are also maybe some ideas of trading off the queens with queen e4, or maybe even playing the knight to e4 with some ideas of knight to f2 at some point when he moves his rook. Thinking if we should offer a queen trade here. Or if we should pull the queen back to h6. Probably h6. It's probably the most natural way to play this kind of position. Yeah, there's definitely some play here. I can, obviously, if he moves his rook, again, I have ideas of playing knight to g4 that hits the bishop and also hits the pawn on f2. So I like this idea of the bishop staying on this diagonal and hitting our f2 pawn. I might play a move like a6, also give it some room if he plays something like a3 to attack it. Yeah, he really wants to trade queens with us. Queen g6, knight h4. Let's go ahead and trade this queen off. I might be okay here with accepting a bishop takes f6 move. No, maybe not. Yeah, let's go for it. Let's let him take on f6 and see what he has to say about that. I want to go ahead and get my rooks activated and take over the d file here. I think our bishop will definitely be able to outplay that knight, even if we get the pawn, the messed up pawn structure here on f6. I think that overall, in the long term, I think we'll definitely get some good play with our bishop going to d4. A very centralized, good square. And we do have the option of taking the knight at this point. I'd actually do that, honestly. I'm really liking this idea of bringing in the rooks to the active squares. So he attacks us. So we can play rook d3 here. So now he wants to play a move like b4 and just shut off our rook completely. Our bishop, I mean. I'm gonna go ahead and just double up the rooks here. Yeah, the main idea here is to just maintain this active squares for our pieces and make sure that we're not falling for back rank checkmate ideas and things like that. I'm probably thinking about playing b6 here. So if he plays something like a3, I can play a5. And if he pushes b4, we take. He takes. I don't know. It doesn't really do anything to stop him from playing a3 and b4. Really would like to keep this bishop on this diagonal if possible because it constantly pressures f2 long term. Looking at some tactics, maybe potentially in the future with bishop takes f2, but well, don't see anything right now. At some point, I would like to maybe consider playing like e5, e4, e3 also. Sorry, just looking at one thing real fast. Okay, it's fine. All right, so yeah, so yeah, he does go ahead and play the move b4. So I mean, I don't have any choice but to go ahead and just play bishop d4 at this point. Imagine we'll take with this rook. The idea here now is to make sure that we get our king to e7 as quickly as possible. We want to stop all sorts of back rank ideas. Put the king on d7. Put the rook on d2. Just start pressuring all of the pawns here. Maybe d2, rook b2, rook d2. I think is going to be a very strong attack for us. So now we want to go ahead and start pressuring and piling up and doubling up our rooks on the 7th rank as quickly as we can. So now I'm thinking if we can get away with playing like rook takes rook b2, if he plays rook to d1 in that position, we could play rook king f8. Oh, he can't play rook to d1 actually. Well, he could. Then we can trade, take on. I don't know. Let's play king f8 first, then we're gonna play rook a2. I don't like the idea of his rook coming down to d8. Actually, we could have played rook b2, rook b4. As a matter of fact, I just missed that idea. Then again, he plays rook d1 is the problem. So if rook a4 now, rook d1, rook takes. Actually, I can play e5 also. Takes, he's giving me a pass pawn. D1. Let's play king e7 just to activate our king as quickly as we can. If I can play rook e2 and rook d2 in this position, I think I would feel very, very comfortable that this is probably a decisive advantage for us if we can double up these rooks on the 7th rank somehow. Actually, we had some other ideas too. We could have played rook takes c4 if he had played rook d1. Didn't even think about that idea. Now I believe we can play rook a2. I do think if he allows rook d2 here, I mean, that position is going to be very strong for us. So now we can start gobbling some pawns here. Starting with this one. We're barely in time to stop this pawn, but I mean, still risky no matter how you look at it. I wonder if we could have played rook to a2 and then rook to c2. Oh man. Why didn't I just do that? Rook's behind passers. Duh. That was a mistake. We could have played rook to a2 here, actually. And if he plays c7, then we could have played rook c2. But I don't know if that... I mean, he can queen, actually, in that position. Never mind. We couldn't have done that. Just kidding. I wonder if I can play king d6 now. Check here. He takes, we take. He checks, we play here. King d6, he checks, we play here. d7, check. Take. I think this definitely... What if king d6, then he plays c7? Rook c8, check. Ooh, that's looking really scary. If I can play rook c7, I would feel a lot more comfortable about this position. If you play c7 here, I think that's the most testing move he can play. I'm not sure if after rook c7 if we have any sort of advantage at all. After the move c7. So he's allowing this move to happen on the board. Now we can play rook c7. And I feel a lot better about the position now. Because we have rook a6, rook takes a6 coming up very soon. Rook a6, rook b7. If rook b7, king d6. I'm pretty sure he'll check. He can check on d7. We take, he pushes pawn on c7. It's definitely an idea. Then, I mean, he's just giving up rook on a pawn. Well, he is getting his rook on the 7th rank, though. That's the thing. He's going to pick up the a pawn at least. Hmm. Yeah, I figured he was going to get that pawn from us. So now it's all about activating our pieces properly. I don't know how I feel about this move. Because I definitely want to keep the king cut off. This is a hard position. This is definitely a very, very tough position to win. But let's try to push for the win anyway. Wow. That was very lucky that he ran out of time. I wasn't even paying attention to the time being so low. We were just playing it out. I didn't realize there was no increment either. It's an unfortunate loss for him because the position is clearly a drawn position. Yeah, let's go ahead and quickly analyze this position in this game and see what all we could have done differently and what we could have done better potentially. So yeah, let's see here. So request a computer analysis, and then let's go ahead and get to the starting position here. So after e4, we played c6, which is the Caro-Kann. After d4, we played d5, which is main line of the Caro. Now after he plays knight c3, we took on e4, he takes back, we played bishop. This is all standard opening book moves. g3 here, knight f3. A lot of times people play h4 here and get the h pawn rolling, and they want to castle queen side and start an attack on the black's king side. But here white chose to just continue to play normal chess and not push the h pawn. Knight b to d7, bishop d3. I think this move is it's okay. I think it's fine. But it does help black because I trade off my bishop, and I've solved the problem with a dark or light square bishop, which is one of the main problems in these kind of structures often. Just developing our pieces naturally and normally. Apparently after knight f6, white gets a strong initiative somehow. Computer likes to move e6 a little bit more. I don't understand why the evaluation increases for white so much, even though I'm playing the moves that it wants to play. And here I'm at point 1, and then I go to point 7 by picking the top choice moves for black. That's strange. So yeah, here he castled. I played e6. I think queen c7 was definitely playable as well, but e6, played c3. And I think I played bishop to e7 here. Bishop d6 definitely could have been played as well. Yeah, bishop d6 maybe might have been a slightly better move. So yeah, here I thought that, well, I just want to simplify the position, play c5, and just get castled and have a really good, solid game. So I didn't want to complicate by keeping pieces on the board. So I went ahead and chose to just go ahead and exchange the knights. And go ahead and put my knight on other knight on the f6 square. Played queen c2. Yeah, queen e2 might have been a little bit more challenging to face, but it's about roughly equal. I do think queen c2 at some point in down the future will come under attack from rook c8. So with that idea in mind, maybe queen e2 might have been a little bit more desirable, but I think they're roughly the same. So castles, yeah. So here he played b3. He wants to develop his bishop on the long diagonal. I think bishop f4 is definitely a more natural way to develop that bishop. So yeah, we played c5 right away, but computer is suggesting queen c7 first. Again, I think it's roughly equal, either move. Okay, so we made 2 inaccuracies, 2 blunders. Wow. We're going to see what the blunders are here shortly. Let's see here. So after c5, he took. So yeah, we took back with our bishop. And in this position, Let's see here. So he plays c4, which is fine. It's a good move, I think. Just opening up the diagonal for the bishop to hop into b2. I think here we played queen c7, which is again one of the top choices by the computer. So yeah, he played bishop b2. Played queen f4. Computer likes the idea of just playing it, allowing that bishop takes f6 move, and just playing rook to d8. I agree. I think we don't have to fear that because it just helps. But again, I don't think that most humans would like the idea of allowing the king side to be broken up like that for no good reason. But I think that black is perfectly fine if he does choose to go ahead and allow that trade to happen. But anyway, I chose to play queen f4. I mean, you could make the argument that I wasted some time with the queens when I could have been developing my rook, but plays this. Queen g4 was an option. Queen e4 was an option, trading the queens right away, but I chose to go with queen h6, keeping the queens on the board. Here he plays queen d2. So it's saying rook f2 e1 was a little bit better, but he wants to trade queens with me, and he did. So knight takes here, and then here I felt like it's roughly about even. I didn't really see that anyway that anybody could gain some significant advantage. So yeah, I did play the right move here, rook a to d8. And he chose to take on f6. So there's a couple options. I think both would make some sense. I think taking the bishop on f6 would make sense, but I just didn't like the idea of the doubled pawn. So I thought maybe why not just get my rook to a better square and take the knight and look at it just as an even trade instead. So here, so yeah, computer is suggesting rook c2 as a possible option as well. I just didn't like the idea of maybe, I don't know what I was thinking about rook c2. He would have to move his rook to c1 anyway. And yeah, so that's the thing. I think rook c2, rook f to c1, bishop takes f2, check. According to computer, I could have actually gotten a pawn here. Wow, we missed this tactic for sure. Yeah, definitely missed that tactic. That after rook c2, he really doesn't have a good way to defend that bishop. If the bishop moves to some other square, I think the idea is that I could quickly get my other rook into the game with rook d8, and that would be a pretty decisive advantage for me, I think. So yeah, he chooses to protect the bishop. Got our other rook into the game. Plays b4. Yeah, computer likes the bishop d4, just trading the bishops up. But bishop really doesn't have any good squares after he plays b4. So it's best just to offer that trade. He took, and yeah, we took with the 8th on the bottom rank. And then he plays g3. Here we played rook to d2. Computer likes king f3, f8 a little bit more, and I agree with that. I think that's definitely a smart move to get the king activated as quickly as possible. But the move we chose, I think, is fine. Improves the positioning of the rook and attacks the pawn. So he plays a4. So here we play king f8, getting our king activated into the game as quickly as we can. Plays b4. Okay, so here I think we definitely made some inaccuracy. We shouldn't have let him let these pawns get so active. So yeah, b6, I totally can see how that's a good move here. Just stopping that entire bunch of pawns and making all of them weaknesses on c4, a4, everything. We played king e7 here, so then he plays rook here. Man, again, we missed a really good idea here. We could have played king to d6 to c5 and gotten the king super active. Super active king. Just totally missed idea. Instead went with the rook. Definitely should have gone with the king d6 move. Yeah, he plays c5 here. Don't know if taking the a4 pawn was the right idea here or not, but okay, we played this first. Plays rook to f1. Then we played c6. Pretty much have to take. Takes again. Oh, we could have again played king d8. Interesting idea. Played rook d8 instead. King b8. Yeah, rook d8 is a better move. Better way to defend this. Rook c8. Yeah, I thought he should have played c7 here, definitely. He did this. I feel like we definitely had some advantage here. But he defended this extremely well. Honestly, just really couldn't prove our advantage here at all. So yeah, rook a6. Plays this. So now, yeah, now that we got both of his rooks tied to this pawn, we really should have just focused on getting our pieces to the best possible squares we can, like g6 and things like that. But we came with the king. Checks. Back to e7. Came back this way. So I really thought about rook b6 here, actually. But it was so low on time, I just couldn't calculate all the different possibilities after rook b6. But I think that definitely would have been the best move. But we chose to take instead. Lost some advantage, definitely, for sure. Now he takes, and then he plays check, and he's picking up our a pawn. And now that pawns are not on both sides of the board, I think it's a very difficult win. We pushed for a win anyway, even despite being so low on time. I think that's good. So yeah, he tries to activate the king. We cut off the king right away. Played g5, just getting our pawns activated as well. Rook h8. Played g4, trapping the king in as much as we could. He attacks. Yeah, I think rook c4 maybe. I don't know. Peter likes it. Yeah, here I was thinking about how can I get my pieces more active, but it's just really tough to win this kind of positions with pawns on the same side of the board. Even if you have an extra pawn, it's not so easy to win these positions. So we played h5, played rook h8, defended with the king, came this direction. I thought about cutting off the king as much as I can, so I played rook c1, but perhaps it's really not a useful move. Maybe if anything, rook c2 might have been more accurate. Checks, king h7, attacks, king g7, he goes this direction. Yeah, a lot of these moves are just time pressure moves, and I don't know if they're necessarily the best moves. So rook c2, pinning the pawn again. Gets his rook activated. We make a waiting move, kind of. He does as well. Now we start pushing our pawn and improving our king position a little bit. That leaves a bunch of these weaknesses here. He did a really good job of making sure that he's attacking our weaknesses constantly. So yeah, this check was really good because it makes me push this pawn, and now, again, I just don't know how I could really make much inroads here. It's very difficult. Yeah, I kind of wasted some moves with the rook. I should have just played, I don't know. He plays king e1 here, which is a blunder. Oh, because I have rook b1 check here, and then followed by rook a1 picking up the pawn. Wow, we missed that idea. But we had like 10 seconds here, so it's just really hard to play these, find these kind of moves that fast. So I had to just go for the moves that I knew were the safest, which this is not a bad move either. Yeah, according to the computer, we're still winning here. Oh, we're not anymore, actually, just kidding. Apparently, we're not supposed to take the pawn on h4 here, because that loses all of our advantage because it drops the f5 pawn. That's what it was, yeah. With 7 seconds, this is a very tricky position to hold, actually. But anyway, when I played this move, I didn't even see that rook takes f5 was an option. No, it's a dead draw pretty much. There's not really much that can be done here. Yeah, pretty much every move draws here. So yeah, thanks guys. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully I was able to answer the question of whether chess players are smart or not. I just gave you some research that I've done myself to kind of look into the question. I'm gonna leave it up to you guys to think that if you guys are smart because you're chess players or not. But I'm gonna assume that I'm not any smarter than the average person who doesn't know how to play chess. Um, but definitely chess is a good game. I think that it certainly sharpens the brain in different ways. I don't know if it necessarily can be equated to an increased intelligence, but if you look at the list of the top players, I mean the top highest verified IQs in the world, you would see that a lot of them are chess players. Gary Kasparov being on that list, Judith Polgar is on that list, and recently some people are including Magnus Carlsen, the current world chess champion, into that list as well. So thank you guys again. Take care, and hope to see you guys in the next video. Leave your comments below and let me know what else you guys like to see in these videos.